welcome back. Today we are going to do just a brief little job on some tail lights. We're doing a huge amount of body work on the truck. We've got a lot of video that we're currently editing on the doors. We did a real in-depth video on the doors, but it's taking a long time to put together. So we thought just to keep things rolling, we'd do a quick little thing on the tail lights. A how-to, yeah. It's a very common problem in all of ours. We have a couple of them. That the light bulb rusts into the socket and the socket's all rotted out. So in this video, we're just going to show you how I go about replacing the socket, and we show you the part numbers and stuff so you can do it yourself. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is take the bulb out, or take the light out. Take the 3 screws out of the lens there and pry the lens out a little bit. Then there's just a couple of bolts in the back there, which holds the housing in. The light actually grounds through those bolts, so when you're putting it back together, you'll want to clean it up, clean up your connection and clean up the rust off there with a little wire brush or something. The wire goes down in the back here. Now this is the driver's side. In behind the battery, you can see it. And the wire continues down and is clipped onto the chassis. Just behind the voltage regulator. This is the voltage regulator here, and the wires are clipped on just in the back there. Hard to see with the camera there, but there I've unclipped it from the chassis, and that's your plug there. So it's you can see the little clip there where it clips into the chassis there. It'll just pull off. Passenger side's a whole lot easier to see. You just look down and it's just above your muffler cutout there, right on the frame. So unplug your plug, obviously, and that's all that's holding the wires in. So now you can just pull the whole tail light and wiring harness out the back side, and we'll go inside and change it up. So the socket is sort of peened into there. It's rolled over on the inside. So I'm just going to lop the back of it off with a zip cut. You could use a hacksaw or a file or something too if you don't have a zip cut wheel. You want to be careful to not damage the aluminum housing. So I've just cut the steel housing of the socket there. And there's still the flange. You can see it much more clearly now where it's rolled over on the inside to hold it to the aluminum housing. So with a little sanding disc there, I'm just removing the back side of that steel, and I can pop the center bit out there. That leaves us a hole in the aluminum housing that's just slightly smaller than the 3/4 inch that's needed for the socket that we use, but it works just the way it is. This one's a little bit bent up, so I'm just going to straighten it up a little bit with a hammer and dolly here. I also used the same technique to fix one of the screw holes was stripped out that holds the lens on, and I just peened it over a little bit in the same dolly. So this is the socket that we used. I hadn't done this before, and I just figured that the hole was going to be about 3/4 of an inch when I got the old socket out, which turns out it's pretty darn close. So it just pops right into the hole there. Now it grounds through those spring clips on the outside to that aluminum housing, so you want to make sure it's nice and clean. That's why I was wire brushing it there. The next step, you got to sort of pay attention to the color coding of the wire. So that socket operates both your tail light and your brake light. So it's a dual filament bulb, and it's got 2 contacts on the bottom, which is where the positive comes through, and then it's got 2 bayonet fittings on the side that are offset so that the bulb can only go in clocked one way. So that the right connection the brighter filament is for your brake lights, the duller filament is for your tail lights, and you want to make sure that they're connected properly. So you can see the grooves on the side of the socket there. One is taller than the other or longer than the other. They coordinate with the shallower pin and the deeper pin on the light bulb. So what you need to do is identify which wire goes to which side of the socket. So what I did here was I lined up the long side groove there, not the short one, and the long side on the original socket. And you see that that's the short side and the long side. Now if we go over here, they're both long side up, and the blue wire is on the left of the screen there. So now I know that the left wire on the new socket goes to the blue wire. Cutting them off, I just made sure I had a little bit extra length there in my wiring harness. You don't want to cut them off too short from your plug so that it reaches. So here we are, lined up the long side. The blue wire's on the left of the screen. I tied a knot in the other one so that I knew which one I was connecting first. I use uninsulated crimp connectors and then glue-lined heat shrink tubing to seal them up. This way I know that I'm getting a good electrical connection and my crimp is good. When you use the insulated style crimp connectors, it's hard to see in there, and they don't seal up very well to make sure that you've got a good electrical connection. But here you can see, give it a good tug. The copper goes all the way in. It's a nice tight crimp. Don't forget to put your heat shrink on before you put the other side on, and then connect the two of them together. I'll do a segment on wiring details, how I like to do my electrical connections. Because I use a glue-lined heat shrink, I clean it off with lacquer thinner first. I like to mark the end of the heat shrink tube so that I know it's in the right spot. Once you slide it over, if it moves around when you're heating it, it ends up offset. So join your two wires together, and that's your socket assembly ready to go back in. Plug your light bulb in here, and because this was the first time I did this, I didn't realize the little spring clips actually bent over because the hole's slightly small and stopped the light bulb from going into the hole there. So I just used a pair of pliers there and bent them out a little bit so that when they were clipped in place, the light bulb would still go in there. You could file the hole out a little bit bigger, but I prefer the tighter fit, so I was quite happy to just bend the tabs over a bit so the light would go in. And then it's just a reverse of how it came apart. Again, it grounds through those two bolts, so you want to make sure they're a good clean connection. I will be 3D printing a gasket for the lens. For those of you that noticed that I didn't put a gasket in there, I'm going to 3D print some. And there we go. That's all there is to it. Plug your socket back in and your light should work. Thanks for watching.